Hey guys, welcome to Dive Deeper. And Shauna, welcome home.
Hey, thanks. I'm super excited to be back, though it's a little chilly. I'm managing.
All right, well, a couple quick things. Remember, the Title Impact Fundraiser is on Sunday. Libby's evangelism training is on Saturday if you want to do that. Then next week is Easter week, and we actually have rally night.
Yeah, and I'm preaching, which I'm super excited about. I won't spoil it right now, but it's going to be good.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's next Wednesday. And then for Easter week, there's a couple of extra services at our church that are special. So Thursday evening, there's a prayer and reflection time from 6 to 7 p.m. that reflects on Jesus' Last Supper. And then Friday morning, we have our Good Friday service, which reflects on Jesus' death on the cross.
Then my favorite part, Easter Sunday, we're celebrating Jesus coming back to life. So even if you're not part of Middleton Baptist, make sure to go to church somewhere Easter Sunday, because it's the best Sunday of the whole year.
Yeah, I love Easter Sunday. Celebrating Jesus coming back to life. It's going to be awesome. All right, so there are a few events coming up. But also, we sent out OneCon forms last week. So those are due May 6th. So make sure to get those in. OneCon's an insane event. Like, it's literally thousands of students coming together from around the Maritimes to worship Jesus. It's fun, it's wild, and it will change your life. And so make sure to do whatever you can to come.
All right, let's stop there for our warm-up question. Which movies have you watched over and over again, and why? All right, Oliver, we were reading Acts 17 this week. What should we focus on?
All right, so once again, Paul and his team are traveling around to different cities telling people about Jesus. And in Acts 17, first, they go to Thessalonica, which later he writes the books of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians to. And then he goes to Berea. And I wanted to highlight something about how the Jewish people in Berea respond to Paul's message.
Okay, what's that?
Well, why don't we pause first and in your groups read Acts 17, 10 to 12. Okay, so it says that every day Paul would preach about how Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. He was basing his preaching on the Old Testament texts. That was their Bible, right? The New Testament hadn't been written yet. And he was explaining how the Old Testament prophesied that the Jewish Messiah had to suffer and die and be resurrected. So verse 2 to 3 outlines that, what Paul was preaching. It says, as was Paul's custom, he went to the synagogue service, and for 3 Sabbaths in a row, he used the scriptures to reason with the people. He explained the prophecies and proved that the Messiah must suffer and rise from the dead. He said, this Jesus I'm telling you about is the Messiah.
Okay, so that's what Paul was preaching, but how did the Berean people respond?
Right. So it says that every day Paul would preach, and then they would go and search the scriptures themselves to see if what Paul was preaching was actually true.
So they were really committed to following what the Bible said.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Luke, the author of the book of Acts, is highlighting. And that's what I want to highlight for us. We shouldn't just listen to a pastor or someone else telling us what they think about Jesus. We need to look at what the scriptures actually say and see if that lines up. Like, if I ever teach something that doesn't fit with what you read in scripture, don't listen to me, listen to the Bible. And please, tell me so that, I can correct myself.
Right, and that's the reason why it's so important for all of us to be reading our Bible. Because if we haven't read it, how would we know if something someone was teaching was wrong?
Right.
We wouldn't be able to say, wait a minute, that doesn't fit with what I read in the Bible in this certain book or whatever.
Yeah, okay. So I was trying to think of how to do a practical activity in response to this. And a couple of weeks ago at my group, we asked a theological question. No one really had an answer right away. And so we all took 5 minutes and we took out our phones and we searched on Google and to see, what we found. And actually, it was a really cool activity, and we discussed some great answers to that question. And so I was thinking it would be really cool if the other groups got to try that too. And so what I want you to do is to try to evaluate the websites that you read, like the Bereans did in Acts. See if what they say actually fits with what the scriptures say. So try this. Take out phones in your group, and I know not everyone has a phone, so you might need to share or partner up or whatever. But search this. Did Jesus claim to be God? And you'll find some websites that say he didn't, and you'll find some websites that say he did. So see what you find.
Okay, I think it would also be helpful to suggest a couple trustworthy websites so that if students do have questions, they can go to those websites and be pretty safe, even though still we always need to evaluate what they say through the scriptures. So what are a couple of websites they should go to?
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's a website called gutquestions.org that's actually really solid. Also, if you have more theological questions, ligonier.org is good. I know that's hard to pronounce, but you can read it down here. And the Bible Project is great for overall Bible study. They don't have like a search a specific question kind of function, but more so if you just want to study books and themes in the Bible Project is awesome.
All right, so let's try that activity now. Search, did Jesus claim to be God? And evaluate what you read through what we've read in the Bible. All right, what else should we talk about from Acts 17?
Okay, so after the city of Berea, Paul goes to Athens, a famous city in Greece, famous for its philosophers who thought about big ideas. And so when Paul preaches there, he takes a different approach. He doesn't start with the Old Testament scriptures like when he's talking to Jewish people. He takes a more philosophical approach and even quotes some of the Greek philosophers.
Okay. All right, so we don't have time to unpack everything he says in Athens, but what's one thing that stands out?
All right, well, why don't you read verses 24 and 25, and we'll talk about that. All right, so Paul is contrasting the Christian God with the Greek gods who they worshipped with idol statues. And he says the true God doesn't live in temples. He isn't made of gold or wood or stone.
Right, but no one today in their schools is worshiping little idol statues. So how is this relevant today?
Okay, sure. So here's one thing Paul says is unique about Christianity that maybe people today, even some of us in the church, might be more inclined to think. A lot of people think that God needs us in some way. Paul was contrasting this with the Greek gods because people thought, they needed to give the gods sacrifices to feed them or to make them happy or something like that. And people today might think God needs us to serve him. God needs us to worship him to make him feel good or something. Or God needs us to serve him maybe by serving the poor and making the world a better place. Sometimes we might think that God needs us to tell other people about himself, right? Like he needs us to share the gospel.
So you're saying God doesn't need us to do any of that, but he does ask us to serve him and make the world a better place and to tell people about Jesus.
Right. He does ask us to do those things, but he doesn't need us to. Like God doesn't need anything from us. He could do all of that himself. So that kind of makes us think like, well, then why do we serve God? Why do we worship him? What do you think? So one reason Paul gives in verse 25 is this. And human hands can't serve his needs, for he has no needs. He himself gives life and breath and everything, and he satisfies every need. His point is that God has given us everything, even the very breath in our lungs. He's the one who gives us our life. And so we serve him, not because he needs us, but we serve him out of a grateful response to all the good things he's given us.
And that makes me think of that song, Great Are You, Lord, where we sing, it's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Yeah,
that song is actually based on this verse.
All right, so let's talk about this, because the reason why we serve God is actually really important. Our heart behind why we serve him really matters. There are wrong reasons to serve God, and even though we might be doing good things, we might be doing them for the wrong reasons. So talk about this. What are some good reasons and bad reasons to serve God?